Tonight on Legislative Review. A look at the week ahead. Plus, state senators approve their bipartisan capital budget proposal. And a proposal to tax social media platforms to fund youth behavioral health programs. You're watching Legislative Review. Thank you for watching Legislative Review. I'm Angela Velasco with today's top discussions in the state legislature. Welcome to Week 13 of the 2025 legislative session. We have just about 3 weeks left in the session, which will adjourn on Sunday, April 27th. This week in the legislature, it's all about fiscal committees and floor debate. Monday and Tuesday, fiscal committees in the House and Senate hold lengthy meetings to vote on bills from the opposite chamber. All bills that have a fiscal impact, in other words, those that the state must pay for via the state budget, must be approved by a fiscal committee before they can be considered for floor debate. Among those, a bill to limit rent increases to 7% a year. Bills to place new requirements on the purchase of firearms and restrict the possession of firearms in certain places. A proposal that would make changes to the state's covenant homeownership program, and many more. The deadline for fiscal committees to act on bills is Tuesday. After that, expect long days of floor debate under the Capitol dome, as the full House and Senate convene to discuss and vote on bills from the opposite chamber. And if you happen to be near the state capitol around noon on Wednesday, stop by for Beef Day, one of the more popular days on the legislative calendar, hosted by the Washington Cattlemen's Association. Before we start with Monday's coverage, we'll catch you up with what happened over the weekend when state senators unanimously approved Senate Bill 5195, a $7.3 billion capital budget proposal for the next 2 years. Debated on the floor Saturday, April 5th, it allocates $770 million for housing and $1 billion to early learning and K-12 education, which includes construction and grant funding for safety and preparedness. $563 million would be allocated to the School Construction Assistance Program, $143 million for school seismic safety grants, $201 million for small district and tribal school modernization, which would help 40 small school projects, and $12 million for school security and preparedness. $1.2 billion is allocated for colleges and universities statewide. $400 million would go to various projects across community and technical colleges. Earmarked in this funding, $25 million for Washington State University's new Sciences Building, and $10 million for Eastern Washington's facility preservation projects. The budget also invests in water infrastructure. Among these priorities, $69 million to fund the Columbia River Water Supply Development Program. Democratic Senator Yasmin Trudeau, Vice Chair of the Ways and Means Committee, spoke on the Senate proposed capital budget.
We balanced a budget. We invested in everything from housing to hatcheries, Mr. President, unprecedented investments in housing and hatcheries, childcare, behavioral health, all of the things that we know to be responsive.
Republican Senator Mark Schessler also spoke in favor, highlighting Senate budget leaders' bipartisan effort to balance their priorities.
We looked at this budget and we saw fewer resources, Mr. President. So we made tougher decisions every step of the way, working on priorities that made the chair just as happy as the ranking minority member.
The proposed budget leaves about $222 million in reserves.
Mr. President, there are 47 aye, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, substitute Senate Bill 5195 is declared passed. The title of the bill will be the title of the act.
After passing with unanimous support, it now heads to the House of Representatives for approval. Both chambers will need to come up with a final version of the capital budget, along with an operating and transportation budget, all before session ends on April 27th.
Businesses must pay the B&O tax even though they may not have any profits or are operating at a loss.
On Monday, April 7th, members of the House Finance Committee heard a bill that aims to address the growing behavioral health needs of Washington's youth. To fund the initiative, lawmakers are looking at the use of social media platforms. House Bill 2038 proposes a new B&O tax on social media platforms and any business operating on a social media platform. Set at 0.4% of the platform's gross income, it would be used to raise funds for youth behavioral health services by establishing a so-called youth behavioral health account. The money from this account will serve young Washingtonians up to age 25 in a variety of initiatives, like telebehavioral health services for school-aged youth. Democratic Representative Lisa Callan is the bill's prime sponsor.
Through current research and data that there is impacts to the behavioral health of our youth in terms of anxiety, depression, and other aspects of that. 40% of those that responded of 8th graders, 47% of 10th graders, and 50% of 12th graders self-reported problematic internet use, experiencing increased social anxiety, and feeling withdrawal when away from the internet and losing motivation to do other things that they need to do or want to do usually.
Proponents call it a, quote, modest tax, saying it would help with Washington's youth mental health crisis, which they claim has been made worse by social media. Dr. Stephen Blanford of the youth advocacy nonprofit Children's Alliance.
Our state currently ranks 48th in the nation in youth mental health, meaning we have some of the lowest access to mental health care and highest prevalence of youth living with mental health challenges. 1 in 8 Washington 8th graders have made a suicide plan in the last year, and 64% of youth with anxiety or depression are not receiving any care at all.
Testifying against the bill, Rose Feliciano of TechNet.
The bill will violate the Permanent Internet Tax Freedom Act. It prevents tax from imposing discriminatory or multiple taxes on internet and electronic commerce. It singles out social media companies while exempting other online services like messaging apps and online gaming. It also imposes an additional B&O tax on top of an existing B&O tax.
While taking a neutral stance on the bill, the Washington Retail Association expressed their concerns.
For many small and emerging retailers, social media isn't just a tool, it's an extension of their storefront. Sometimes it is their storefront, and it allows them the opportunity to be able to build community and develop their voice to their consumers. Passage of this bill could result in social media platforms passing on the cost through increased advertising fees or charging for access to certain analytic tools.
If passed, House Bill 2038 would take effect beginning January of next year. Unless bumped by live legislative coverage, you can always watch Legislative Review nightly at 8 and 11. And don't forget, we're also on YouTube, and our audio version is on Spreaker. That's a wrap for us tonight. Stay with us throughout the legislative session, where we bring you all the top debates right here on Legislative Review. We'll see you tomorrow.